Merry Meet, Annie here. We are in the final days of the season of Yule, and the reflection for today is something that's a bit of a heads up. Things are about to change. The reflection is a bit of a prose from Ruth Stout, an author of books on gardening and consideration of winter. And she writes, "There is a privacy about it," and it is winter, by the way. "There's a privacy about it which no other season gives you. In spring, summer, and fall, people sort of have an open season on each other. Only in the winter, in the country, can you have longer, quiet stretches when you can savor belonging to yourself." Well, in light of Ruth being a gardener, I can see that her perspective is from the country, but I think the quiet stretches she refers to are as common in suburban and metropolitan areas too, where the cold tends to keep folks indoors and as much as possible and not out and about in public so much. I'm not so sure this privacy thing is just something that happens in the country in the winter time. What do you think? Belonging to ourselves. It's one of the challenges of our lives. It's a matter of enjoying our own company, feeling at ease alone, and celebrating the times when we are, if even for a bit, separate from our responsibilities towards others or expectations we have of them or them of us. It's a bit of a slippery slope, this belonging to ourselves thing. Because in the end, it does come down to self-love and self-care. Why a consideration of this at this time of the year? Because it is the inward time of the season of earth, and we are reminded by the birth of the sun child that the tender things matter and must be nurtured. And one of those tender things is ourselves. Specifically, our relationship with ourself, whatever we're going to become. It's beginning in this quiet time. From an article by Peg O'Connor in Psychology Today, and the article is entitled, "Know How to Belong to Yourself." If you Google belonging to yourself, by the way, lots and lots of topics. It seems that knowing ourselves should be easy, writes Peg. After all, each of us is an expert on her own experiences and has access to her own thoughts, beliefs, and feelings that no one else can have. A common mistake is to assume that there's nothing more easily known than one's self. What do you think about that? How well do you know yourself? And does that knowing allow for the fact that the circumstances of your life, and therefore with you within it, constantly change? Is the you that you know truly who you are in this moment, or have you frozen your knowledge of yourself somewhere in time? If you're honoring who you are now, what kind of love and support are you giving to that person, that one you declare you know? From Bren Brown in Braving the Wilderness, The Quest for True Belonging and the Courage to Stand Alone. She's big in her self-help books. I'm going to admit none of which I've read. This is just a quote from one on the phrase true belonging. In her books, she focuses on the fact that if we don't start out by belonging to ourselves, we can't belong to anything that's outside of us. This is a quote from her in that book. "True belonging is the spiritual practice of believing in and belonging to yourself so deeply that you can share your most authentic self with the world and find sacredness in both being part of something and standing alone in the wilderness. True belonging doesn't require you to change who you are. It requires you to be who you are. We have the privacy of this season to explore this aspect of becoming. We owe it to the season, we owe it to ourselves. For the world is about to be recreated around us in the seasons to come, and we are, in effect, recreating our personal world. From Eric Michael Leventhal in his book, A Light from Shadows, Reflection, Oneness, Identity, and the Creation of Experience. A bit of a long title. He writes, "The closer you come to knowing that you alone create the world of your experience, the more vital it becomes for you to discover just who is doing the creating." What will we, and I mean you and me both, what will we find if we take the time to savor belonging to ourselves? Maybe we do need to take a pause in this season, in this appropriate time for just that, to discover exactly who is doing the creating in our lives. I wish you mirth and reverence in these last days of the season of Yule. Merry part.